Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pitstop Fracas. I'm your host Anik, and today we are here to discuss that classic Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, which served up an Italian treat. I'm joined today by JL, Kunle, Chris, and another debutant to the pod, Nam. How are you guys all keeping? Let me come to you first, Nam. How are you keeping? Welcome to the Pitstop Fracas family. How did you find that race, mate?
Thanks guys for having me. I'm keeping well. Been busy. I've been watching the other pods and like a good title challenging team. I thought this is the time to come in and start to really enforce myself onto the pods. So yeah, no, it's good to be here. The race was good. I enjoyed it. Not the best race because he who shall not be named won.
Okay.
But yeah,
okay.
Apart from that,
We're here for that.
that guy won. But the legend himself had a spectacular race in my eyes, from what he had to deal with to where he finished. So, but yeah, I guess we're gonna speak on that anyway. So I don't want to spoil too much.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to touch on that definitely, and look, we're going to get into what was definitely an enthralling race. But I suppose before we get fully stuck into the race itself, we should probably touch on yesterday's qualifying performance. And obviously, being the second Q3, you could kind of see a pattern or trend starting to form. Hamilton managed to stick it on pole, his 99th pole of his career, which was fantastic to see. Although we could start to see, Bottas not performing as close to Hamilton as he should be. The Red Bulls, I think it's quite clear to see they're definitely quick now when it comes to the 2021 season. JL, let me come to you on this. How did you see that qualifying performance? What did you make of Bottas? What did you make of the Red Bulls?
So in terms of Bottas, right, I think something needs to be done. I think it's like a mental thing now, whereby even though Toto won't say it, everyone knows he's number 2, right? And this is a genuine title challenge from Red Bull. So you'd think you're in arguably the sister car, but still the best car. You should to be able to get it at least, P2, P3. And for whatever reason, he just couldn't. The pace from Verstappen was expected. Before the weekend, everyone felt he would be a challenge. It was surprising Perez outdid him, but as we said, that was mainly more down to, I think, Max making a mistake on his final run. But it definitely does, at least for this year, show that Mercedes won't be doing 1-2 every single race. And I think, as we'll talk about later in this pod, how critical starts will now be than previous seasons, whereby, it didn't really matter if Lewis was first or second, he's going to win. Now it's, I think, which is good for the sport, being front row or being third and on the good side of the track is going to be important.
No, definitely. I fully agree with you there. Obviously, personally, I feel Bottas should have done much better in that machine. He qualified 8th. And that obviously put the Mercedes as a disadvantage when it came to race strategy. But just, finalizing on the qualifying performance, I'm going to come to you quickly on this, Kunle. What did you make of Perez, out qualifying Max, although by the slightest of margins? Did you see something there to show that, look, Perez has a bit of pace in terms of qualifying?
Not really, to be fair. For qualifying, I totally expected it to be Max, Lewis, and Bottas, or I thought it was going to be any 3 of that combination because, throughout practice, Valtteri was fastest, P1, P2, and then P3, Max obviously hooked it up on P1 in practice 3. So when Perez went P2, it was like, okay, not bad. But I thought his race strategy was going to be compromised based on Q2 because he used the softs for the fastest time in Q2. So he didn't really look comfortable going into Q3 from Q1, Q2. But Max, he went wide. He had some niggles. He had to save the car actually, in terms of, according to what it said. He had to like save the car, and so it made sense that Perez out qualified him. But at the end of the day, we know how the race went today. So I guess that's the point. There's no points on Saturday, right? The points come on Sunday.
Yep, 100%. Look, the points come on Sunday, and what we saw fully tucking into the race itself, like an hour before the start, it started raining. We had cars spinning off as they were entering their grid position. It promised to be a fascinating and exciting race. And you know what? Lo and behold, it was. Now, off the start, we saw, for those of you who aren't aware, Verstappen started in P3, and he really did hook it up at the start. There was a bit of controversy that we did discuss before recording this pod, but he went from P3 to P1 after the first couple of corners, to which there was a little collision with Hamilton. Although it seemed as though the race winner itself was kind of finalized after that. He managed to get himself into the lead, and from there it seemed as though he had reasonable control of the race. I want to come to you on this, Chris. How did you see those opening exchanges between Verstappen and Hamilton?
How I saw it was just good, hard racing. Like, obviously, Max closed the door forcefully, but it was wet there, so it's not like a normal dry condition where it's easy to leave space. Like, everyone's skating about, everyone's struggling, so like you have to give them a bit of leeway to be like, if the doors closed quite aggressively, it's perfectly fine. So yeah, it's just good, hard, clean racing. I think both of them weren't too, like, Hamilton wasn't too angry about it. He was just more worried about the state of his car going over the bumps. So like the stewards saw it, they noted it, and they didn't apply any penalties. So it was perfectly okay in my eyes.
Yeah, look, it is what it is. And I suppose I myself, as a massive Hamilton fan, I've got to put my hands up and say, you know what, in terms of on-track racing, like, Verstappen, in my view, had him there. Like, I feel as though he found the inside line. Verstappen was much more braver than I expected him to be. And, and he flew down the inside. The contact, I saw it as a racing incident personally, and I just think from there, it kind of set the tone for the rest of the race. I just want to get your thoughts on this as well, Niam. How did you see those opening few corners between Verstappen and Hamilton?
So, I immediately have issue of the positioning of Verstappen, because if he did beat Hamilton to the corner, he wouldn't be colliding with the front wing. That to me, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean you haven't fully secured the racing line. In my eyes, if your front wheel connects with someone's front wing in a corner that you're closest to, but you attempt to take the racing line, to me that means you haven't successfully finished your duel. So I didn't understand why the stewards didn't look at that a little bit further, or at least investigate. I don't think there was any kind of investigation on that, from what I remember. So that's where I take a bit of a different stance. But putting that aside, Max did have a decent race. He led from the front, didn't do anything that was going to go crazy, and all fair to him, he finished the job, which I wasn't expecting, but here we are.
Look, you know what, it is what it is, and I suppose as the race progressed through that first stint, we saw Verstappen you know what, in my eyes, have that bit of control over the race. You know, he was leading from the front. He was on those inters. To which point I think it was around I think it was around lap 27. You know, they obviously started looking at pit stops, and you know, he came in first, Verstappen. Hamilton looked to do the overcut, and obviously Hamilton's pit stop was 4 seconds, which in my view could have been a bit quicker in terms of, you know, performing that overcut expertly. But yeah, let me come to you on this, JL. Do you think that pit stop exchange, do you reckon that could have worked out in Hamilton's favour, or do you think Verstappen just had the overall pace?
I just think he had the overall pace because even if you said a 4 second pit stop, right? Even if they got it down to
it was 4 seconds.
sub 3, he'd still be behind Verstappen. I think he just didn't have enough time to, as we say, hammer time. So I don't think the pit stop made any real difference. If I'm not mistaken as well, memory serves me right, Verstappen, when Hamilton was coming out, Verstappen was also behind a car who was trying to trying to lap anyway. So it was just simply Verstappen just had a great race. It just had the pace, unfortunately. And sometimes you just have to hold your hand up and just say that car that today was just the better car.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'll say it again. I feel as though that Red Bull is quicker, much more quicker than I expected it to be at the start of the year. But obviously, Mahad's not on this pod to rebuttal that point. But let's talk about the sister Red Bull now. You know, Max Verstappen's teammate, Sergio Perez, who had an indifferent race. Let's put it that way. You know, he started from second. He had initial difficulty, you know, at the start. Charles Leclerc managed to jump him on the opening lap, and then I think behind the safety car he also went off track, and he was losing places, and then he was hit with a 10-second penalty. It was not the best day at the office for Sergio Perez. So Kunle, let me come back to you on this. How did you assess, or how would you assess Sergio Perez's performance today?
He had a very bad day. It was a bad day, considering he started well, and so this is the thing I don't understand. You're a Formula One driver. You've been a Formula One driver for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
There is a standard rule that every Formula One driver should know. You do not overtake behind a safety car. And I mean, exactly, everyone's shaking their head because you don't just do that. And it goes wide under the safety car. When you go wide, if you crash your car under the safety car, they don't fix your car and put it back where you are. So if you go wide under the safety car, that's you. It's not like anyone forced you wide. You go wide. You rejoin where you rejoin, wherever place that is. But I think even the drivers that he overtook, I don't think anyone was sure about the rules around in that. Because I remember during the race, I asked the same question, like, is he allowed to take the place back, or should he just be, he's meant to be behind? But so he took the place back, and boom, he got slapped with a 10-second stop and go penalty. Fair play to him. After that penalty, he recovered the drive. Speaking of the safety car, that first safety car, let me not speak on the two individuals involved, because that was just shambles. It was just shambles.
Speak on it, Kunle. Tell us about it.
Our good Canadian friend, Nicolas Latifi. And the resident F1 villain, Mazepin.
Whose name we prefer not to say. But yeah.
I'll call it with my Mazepin, you know. They had a little collision and Latifi came off worse. And for what it's worth, that was all on Latifi. I don't think Mazepin had anything to do with that. You know, he was just by himself driving his own race. And then, Latifi did what Latifi does. So back to Perez. He he made good progression. He did what he had to do. He recovered from the stop and go penalty. He was going for the grid. And then, as what would happen, the red lights, the race car's red lights, everyone stops, everyone discussing strategy with their engineers. Okay, this is how we're going to restart. And then the restart's fine. And our good old friend from Mexico, he decides to spin. And it goes from 4th to virtually last because the two Haas cars don't count. Anyways, they're always going to be 19 and 20 when everyone finishes.
Modern day Minardi's.
Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah. God bless Gunter's heart. I don't know what they're doing out there, but God bless his heart. And he goes all the way down to the back. And, from that place onwards, even though you're in the fastest car, even though it's still a whole journey because you've ruined your tires. You got to get hit back to it. I think it was on the soft. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was on the soft.
Yeah, he was.
So it was one of the few drivers on the soft at that point. Him and Lando Norris, which I guess we'll speak on later. And, from there on, that was just the end of his race. And I have Perez beating Verstappen. I'll shamelessly still claim that's going to happen at some point, but he needs to get it cracking now. He cannot afford races like today again if Red Bull wants to win the championship and if he wants to make that seat his own seat. Let's not forget he's got a 1-year contract and Red Bull don't play. If you're not giving them points,
see you later.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Yeah. Kunle, I think you summed it up perfectly there. And I just want to kind of finish up on the Perez point because we have so much to get through today. I want to make sure we get through them all with enough analysis and obviously your guys' opinions on it. But I'm going to come to you on this, JL. For a man that qualified second and ended up in 11th overall, a minute behind. Obviously, Kunle's touched on it. The proceedings that happened throughout the race didn't fall for Perez. Are we starting to see hallmarks here of a cursed second seat at Red Bull? Are we starting to see some issues with Perez, or do you reckon he just needs to get his head in order and he'll showcase his skills to the rest of the Formula One world?
So for me, I'm a Perez fan. I said in the first pod, I said he would do better than Max in whatever way I said it. He's just been unlucky. I think from the first race, he had issues with his car. This race, yes, mistakes that were his fault.
Yeah, he also had steering issues today, by the way. I forgot.
Exactly. So yeah, and he still finished technically, I think, 11th because of the penalty, the post-match penalties. So he has shown he's a strong driver. It's just I know these mistakes of his own doing versus other things outside. It just looks bad, especially when your teammate is battling for the championship and for first, and you were brought in to be basically what Bottas was last season. You're meant to be the guy that is getting second, challenging for second or third, so that Red Bull have a competitive constructors challenge. And right now, he's not doing it. But unlike certain drivers of last year in that seat, I have more faith that 100%, if that was Albon in that seat today, right? And let's say he made the same mistake from the first safety car. Right? He's not driving back to where Perez got to before he spun again. He would have stayed in the midfield battle. So I don't worry that Perez won't do well. He's a competitive driver. He's can overtake. He's arguably the second or first fastest car, depending on how you look at it. Mm-hmm. He just needs to get his head down. And I think he's trying a bit too hard to almost, as you said, it's a 1-year contract. And we all know that Christian Horner is difficult. He's stubborn. And very likely, they're probably already looking at other drivers. So he knows if come race, let's say 5 or 6, if he's not doing what they expect him to be doing, he'll start the season, but he knows he's out of the seat. And after Red Bull, you can't. There's only one place to go up, which is Mercedes.
So,
there'll be no seat for him there. So he knows this is it for him. This will be the best he can potentially get. So I think he just needs to relax. We've seen it with Carlos Sainz as well at Ferrari. These guys are trying a bit too hard. I get why. I don't know the way the sport is designed. But I think he will do okay. No, I'm not as shameless as some other people in the community, but I do believe that Perez, come end the season, will be comfortably in the top 3 or 4 in the championship.
Yep. Nice.
Can I just add something quickly to that?
Go for it. Go for it, Nam.
I feel like Perez has and I think this is what has cursed Gasly in the past, and which has cursed Albon. Probably not to the extent of Albon, but Gasly and Perez is like at Mercedes, your number 2 driver, if they're good enough, would have a decent car and a decent team around them for them to establish themselves as 20. As number 2. So, for example, last year Bottas comfortably finished second in a lot of races, or finished second and third. And I think that's because he had the team, that the Mercedes team had the tactics, had the nous, had the professionalism to put him in a car and in a position to finish in those places. I feel like there's a growing trend at Red Bull now that the number 2 driver doesn't have that team around him. And as a result, they suffer a lot more as second drivers at Red Bull than you would at Mercedes. And as a result, it's showing more on Perez's performances. And like you said, Jay, I think he'll be fine. But if he had that, I think a better structure around him, probably might be challenging. He might be challenging more races than he will be. He might be currently at the moment. Norris is third in the driver standing. That should be Perez. If in anything that's in a normal world, that should be it. But I'm starting to see there's now a growing trend, and it happened with Vettel back in the day when Ricciardo was there and Webber was there. These number 2 drivers just are not having the team around them, and as a result, they're being sacrificed for the star boys of Red Bull, and it's causing people's drivers who would have had really good careers at Formula One to be looking like complete messes.
Yep. I mean, definitely agree with you there on that one.
Speaking of that, I call Perez's car the UHC car. It's the user testing car for Red Bull.
Yeah, the sandbox version in it before they release it to production. Is that what you're calling it? Yeah, Kunle?
Yeah, production -1.
Fair enough. I mean, JL, to be fair, on that point, you touched on Mercedes or Red Bull having the faster car. I in my personal opinion, I personally feel it's the Red Bull car. We'll wait for the FIA to do their investigation and they'll get back to me on to whether that car's, legal or not. Let's put it that way. But regardless of that or not, they done well, and it was quite clear to see they were the fastest car this weekend, and clearly Max, he hooked up perfectly. Coming back to Perez, I personally feel as though starting second on the softer tire. Well, not on the softer tire, obviously that all got wiped out for the start of the race. I feel as though he should have done a bit better, but look, hey ho, we still got another 20 plus races I think to go, so hopefully he can show us what he's made of. Guys, I want to move swiftly on to what was probably the biggest event of the race. It was a incident that involved Valtteri Bottas and George Russell. Everyone's wiping their hands on screen. Yeah, it was an interesting encounter. I mean, we saw George Russell, attempting for points in, I think it was P12 at the time. Bottas was P11, which shows exactly the level Bottas was operating.
No,
in this
they were
Grand
higher
Prix.
up.
But they were higher up, were they?
Yeah,
I
it
think
was.
they were P10. I think it was P10 and P11.
Yeah, sorry. It was.
No, it's P10 and P9, isn't it?
Yeah, all right.
Is
P10
that
and
P9?
P9. Apologies.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, well, they're battling for position 9, which shows what sort of area of the race that they were operating at. And I think it was going into the Tamburello that they both spectacularly collided. Chris, give me your take on this event. It was emphatic accident, to be honest with you. There was carbon fiber debris everywhere, and thankfully, both could walk away. They could also engage in some sort of discussion. I mean, I don't know what sort of communication method was going on there between each driver wearing a helmet, but it seemed like there was a bit of animosity between the two. What was your take on it, Chris?
Well, first of all, like you said, it's like fortunate that everyone came out okay. There was big animosity, like Russell and Bottas were both swearing on the radio. It's a racing incident in my eyes.
Yep.
It's a drying track, slightly wet. Bottas moves the car slightly to the right, where Russell is heading, but there isn't enough space. Russell goes on the wet stuff. He spins, crashes into Bottas. Things happen. What I found really interesting was just the kind of like anger that Russell had towards him, where it was like he got out of the car, went over to him, started swearing at him, hit him on the helmet. Bottas was there giving the finger, causing commentators to apologize. So they were really angry, and Russell's comments afterwards talking about how if it was any other driver, Bottas would have just stayed on his line and not let him through. It's something that I find really interesting. And also the fact that Toto Wolff couldn't really take a side and was just there it's 60-40 and didn't explain which driver it was that was at fault. It was just they both kind of messed up there. So it's a big accident, really unfortunate. But my personal highlight is 100% Kimi Räikkönen right behind, just moaning at the fact that debris just flew in his car, and he's there's stuff everywhere in here. He's just he's driving along behind and say, what's going on? There's stuff everywhere. There's debris all over in my cockpit. He must have been happy it was a red flag to clean up the car because, you don't want to be driving on pieces of rubbish.
Yeah, I mean, look, 100%. First and foremost, it's all about driver safety. So as much as we're thankful both Russell and Bottas could walk away from that incident unscathed. You have to say Räikkönen is also very lucky as well, because there was shards of debris everywhere. The conditions were crazy. So yeah, on that point, it's good to see that everyone walked away happy from that. I suppose that resulted in the red flag, and before we get into some individual performances after that red flag, what was your take on the incident as well, Kunle? I saw you there. You're rubbing your hands. Is there anything you want to speak on in terms of who was at fault here, the aftermath of it, etc., etc.?
Yeah, I just feel like Russell, the man they called George Russell, was talking too much for a man who just tried to kill another man. Because if you look at the replay, the only things that saved Valtteri's life was the halo.
100%.
I don't know if you guys seen that.
I saw that
halo. Did you not see it was the car went up to a level where it hit the halo. If you go check out the replay.
I can't believe what I'm hearing right now.
I was going to mention this as well, but I'm glad Kunle brought it up.
I'm saying what I said. I'm saying what I saw. Go look at the pictures again. He was talking a bit too much. I mean,
a lot.
I get it. It's easy to bash on Valtteri Bottas. It's easy to. I don't think the grid rates him after last year. I feel that they all feel like he can be disrespected. I don't know why. Nam, I don't get. Okay, Nam, you feel like you've got things to say. So I'll let you go.
I have to defend. All right, so I have to defend Russell. and I'm going to take it all the way back historically to Imola when Ayrton Senna died. Ayrton Senna died at that corner, right?
Rest in
died.
peace.
His car
Rest in peace to the legend.
Rest in peace to Ayrton Senna. He died at that corner. So with that in mind, drivers have to be completely careful when they go around. That corner is fatal, right? If you look at the photo, if you look at the images and you look at the video of Bottas his positioning of that car around that corner, or around that bend, and then the jolt that he did afterwards, as soon as Russell gets closer towards him, it is really dangerous. So, because at first I was with you, Kunle, I thought racing incident. In fact, Bottas is in front, so really, it's he's not to blame here. But when I looked at the position of his car is too far wide. It's not, half his car is on the wet stuff. So you know the racing line is probably the driest part of the track. His car is it's like 30% of his car is on the wet stuff. That's facts. So as
it's the bend. It's the bend makes it look that way. But yeah, okay.
It's on there. Whether the bend makes it look like that way or not, it's on there. And then Russell is overtaken, right? We've seen everyone else Hamilton overtake two drivers around that same bend. So it's a possible move if there's enough space. Bottas hasn't left enough space. And then he makes a jolt, which causes Russell to move onto the grass on a wet Imola around a corner that has taken a life of another driver. That is why Russell is so annoyed. And that's why he said to Bottas, do you want to kill us today? Because historically, someone has died at that corner. And this is why I can't take, Kunle, what you're saying about Russell almost trying to save things life. Because even at that moment, even at that moment as well, the carbon fiber from the Mercedes hit Russell's halo twice. So if anything was going to happen, it would have actually, unfortunately, it would have been Russell would have had the worst of it than anyone. This is why I'm so shocked, because what I saw was damning on Bottas, and it's an indictment of his driving, which he's been doing for the last. He's a reckless driver without any tire management and without any ounce of kind of like safety. He's the one who caused the major crash last time was it Portugal or Maranello? One of them, Portugal, I think it was, when when
he backed into everyone.
Yeah, and Grosjean was saying, whoever's at the front, do they want to kill us? And then the major accident that Grosjean had the fire in, surprise, surprise, Bottas is the one who's driving recklessly around the place, causing a spiral effect, causing this has to crash. So we need to speak on...
No.
I love this.
No.
And you will see him.
Bottas
is dangerous. He's dangerous.
No, I love this. I love this.
No.
I've just look, guys. I've just seen it back, and I still stand by what I believe, that the halo saved Bottas. Like, Russell's tire could have literally taken off his head. So you have to credit the safety procedures that are there.
Agreed.
Although Nam, what you were saying about his driving style, an argument can definitely be made for that, because he does jolt one way, and it does result in a chain reaction. Personally, for me, I'm just glad both have walked away safe. Obviously, there was a bit of animosity afterwards. Russell's come on and said, you could have killed us both, which is quite scary, especially when you consider what's happened at Imola in the past. But Kunle, do you have any final words on this?
First things first. To all of my Muslim brothers listening to this in the holy month of Ramadan, I would like to apologize for the haram that's come out of this brother's mouth, because
Stop this.
Because
Right now. Stop this right now.
Bruh, why are you bringing Sakir from last year into this?
No, because I'm showing. Sorry, I'm showing trends. The thing is, when major accidents and unfortunately fatalities happen in Formula One, these trends happen, and this is a trend that needs to be nipped in the bud quickly, because we don't want to get to. We're going to. I've just looked at the calendar. Yeah, we're going to Portugal.
We're going to Portugal next.
Which we had major issues last year. Then Spain, which isn't really as a procession.
No,
we've got Monaco and Azerbaijan and Canada, which are very.
Canada is 50-50. We got COVID out here bad.
No, but in the calendar, that's what's next, right?
Yeah.
So Monaco street race, tight walls. Azerbaijan street race. There's a corner which.
Yeah, I know what corner you're talking about. That tight one when they go. Yeah.
If I catch Bottas there, boy, it's scary. And then Canada again, tight.
No, so Nam, sorry. I'm asking you a question. Are you saying this with your chest on this episode of Pitstop Fracas? On this episode of Pitstop Fracas,
yes, I'm saying that
Valtteri Bottas is a dangerous driver. Are you putting it in the likes of Maldonado and Cole?
You know what? Let it run. I back it.
Joe, you're backing it?
I'm backing it.
Thank you.
I'm backing it.
No,
the thing is, right? This is actually disgusting.
No, because you know what, right? He gave me facts. Because I sit there thinking, you know, that's actually true. Yeah, hey, listen, he gave me facts. What can I say?
It's true.
Like,
the Mugello one, was it Mugello one? That was one. No.
Yeah,
it was
got a point there.
Yeah.
And I don't, Chris, help me out here, please. Like,
okay. The Portimao one, the Mugello one. No, it's Mugello. Yeah, it's Mugello. That one that's someone else's fault to blame, because I don't know why the people at the back were going so fast, but that's another story for another day. This one here, there was space for Russell, but he just went on the wet stuff and he lost it. It happens. The problem is that obviously it was wet, so you make a bit more space. It's like, I think they call it the Max Verstappen rule within the drivers. So it's like, because Max got in trouble for it. So
the Max Verstappen rule. Mahad, are you listening? Yeah, Max Verstappen rule. Yeah.
So that's why George was so angry, because he was like, okay, it's still a bit wet, so you can't move over and like squeeze man like that, especially when man's got DRS driving at 200 miles an hour. You can't make the same like fine movements that you normally would make, let's say if it was fully wet or fully dry, because he had DRS, so he was going to go off and do whatever. So it's like it was a perfect storm between both of them messing up that led to that accident. So you can't call Bottas a dangerous driver. Like, the only person who I've seen him be a bit of an idiot with is Raikkonen. Apart from that, he's been clean with everyone else. So
wait, what?
Yeah, it's been. I don't remember Valtteri being a dangerous driver. To be honest.
You know what? From now on going forward, yeah.
So are we on a Bottas dangerous driving watch?
We have to be on a Bottas dangerous watch. Because watching from now on, yeah, you would see that he does things that I don't know if he knows it's reckless, but it's reckless to the point that if someone makes the wrong move here, fam, it is scary. And I know Formula One is a dangerous sport. No. I understand that they put themselves in positions, but I would rather these incidents happen when a driver who is trying to overtake has made an error or a mistake, but it shouldn't come from the driver defending, and it shouldn't come from a driver who does something which is out of the blue. Like, for example, the thing in Mugello, Portugal, wherever it was, the safety car incident. Previous safety cars nobody's done this. Nobody's gone to the start-finish line and continued the way he was doing it. He could have done it earlier. He should have done it earlier, and he didn't. So if all the drivers behind you assume something that's happened for years and years and years and years, and you decide, today I'm going to try something different, and it causes a terrible accident like that, we need to start questioning your driving. We have to.
Look, we'll see how it pans out across the rest of the year. You know, there is arguments for and against. At the end of the day, it was an incident which really changed the tune of the race. You know, it brought out a red flag. Drivers were allowed to, you know, regroup themselves. We saw Hamilton there. Hamilton looked stressed. One of the first time I've seen him look so stressed behind the scenes.
Can we speak on the Hamilton going off track unprovoked with a certain man called Russell being unlapped? Seems to train out Valtteri being a dangerous driver because, I'm rattled. I'm not even gonna lie, I'm rattled.
Kunle, we'll come on to it. Don't worry, Kunle. We're gonna come on to it. But touching on the restart,
I've just seen it again on the TV. I'm so mad.
Come on, guys. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it stepping. Look, Lando Norris in that McLaren, he was on the soft tires come the race restart. You know, I think we had a break for 20 plus minutes, and then when we got racing again, Norris managed to obviously overtake Leclerc, which resulted him in being in second up until 5 to 6 laps to go. I'm going to come back to you on this, JL. How did you assess that restart from Norris? He done pretty well in my view.
No, he did. It did. I mean, I think before the restart, I was even saying that because Leclerc was second. I even said, guys were saying, oh, maybe Leclerc might try for first with Max. It's like, nah, he won't. He will try and keep that second place. But basically get the car home. But yeah, Norris just had a great start. Just drove past him. That quite simply just drove past him. It's obvious that the McLaren is faster than the Ferrari. And I think what those laps really showed was Leclerc, even though he's a good driver, could not get close to Norris. Yet Lewis, who was overtaking every car behind, like Lewis was getting past every car, had no issues going past him. So, and bear in mind, this is Norris on softs. 15 laps in, so the Ferrari just couldn't get near it. So that to me really emphasized how quick Norris is as a driver, and B, that McLaren are probably the third fastest car on the track. And as I said before, the battle between them and Ferrari will come down to their second drivers, Sainz versus Ricciardo, and which of the two of those adapt to their new team quicker, because both had less than stellar starts, shall we say.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I personally think, you know, McLaren have used their tokens very wisely in the off season, and they've really pushed that car to the next level. And I think on balance, they probably do have the third quickest car. Kunle, I want to come to you to let you let a little more off your chest. Norris's teammate, Danny Rick. Talk to me about him. How was his performance today?
Daniel Ricciardo. Yeah, the light is starting to come on.
What light's this? Tell us about this light.
It's starting to get under the lights. You know, it's been 2 underwhelming performances back to back. With Lando Norris doing, you know, the thing is, if you've had a bad weekend and your teammate had an all right weekend, you're off the hook. No one's really looking at your performance. But if you've had a bad weekend and your teammate is up there fighting for podium places in the same car, and you're, considerably the veteran, more experienced driver, it's a bit, you're looking a bit shaky, considering Lando Norris started all the way in 7th or 8th. Was it 8th or 7th?
And plus, don't forget, had he not had his time deleted, he would have been
he would have
third,
been pole.
I think.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
looking at the whole,
Yeah.
looking at the weekend in the whole, from qualies into the race, it just looked like Danny wasn't really on it this weekend. And even at the restart, when we were on the Discord, the first thing I said was Hamilton should chop off Danny Rick easily because he's not been about it this weekend. So I don't know. I like Danny Rick. I think he's one of the most talented drivers on the current grid. But if these performances do not get better, then we're gonna start having to look at him and say, "My G,
He'll be under the
it's gonna be under the spotlight."
under the spotlight. Yeah.
He'll get the Bottas cam the same way Bottas has the cam. He'll get that same cam on him.
So I just suppose quickly wrapping up on the McLarens, Chris, I'm going to come to you on this. How do you think Danny Rick probably feels? Getting that call midway through the race from Norris asking, "Guys, can you just let me through so I can focus on my race?" I mean, how do you reckon Danny Rick sort of feels about that in terms of his position in the team at the moment and moving forward? Obviously, we want to caveat this all by saying it's only the second race. Norris has been settled in that team for a while now, but just want to kind of get your thoughts on that.
Okay, wait. Before I start on that point, I'm going to say one thing that Kunle said, which is harsh, was about the two being outperformed by Norris. Last race, Gasly did run into the back of him, and he has a bit of an excuse as to why, he didn't perform too well at Bahrain. But at this race, he was just slow. Obviously, your pride as a driver and as a man, you're not going to be happy when you hear that radio message. But he has to suck it up. He has to drive faster. And, he needs to, like he said in the post-race interview, he needs to find the groove of himself in the car. He hasn't got that yet. And it's clear to see that, while Norris is hooked up with it, Ricciardo's still lagging behind and still figuring things out. So we still need to give it a bit more time before we put the lights on. But yeah, it's not a good look right now.
Yeah, definitely not the most exciting times for Danny Rick. But again, like Perez, we hope he showcases his skills as the year goes on. Another team who, in my view today looked pretty good. And they were showing what they were about. They were showing that they're no longer, I think they were I think they were the sixth best team last year, Ferrari. They really did well today, in my view, right across the board. I can see Kunle tapping the Ferrari badge on his chest there. How did you see them doing today, Jo? I know you're a big Ferrari and especially Leclerc fan. How did you see Ferrari, not just today, but over the weekend?
I think over the weekend they had a better race. They did the qualifying because I'm not mistaken, Leclerc was fourth, which in qualifying, which was expected. Sainz was 11th, which was not what we thought. But overall, it was a solid race. It was a solid race from them. I think, especially after the restart, I think Leclerc was third. Sainz was, I want to say, fourth, I believe.
Yeah. They were behind each other.
Yeah, and just a solid, clean race, which is good. And what makes it even more impressive is that Sainz had several spins or off the track a few times. So even for him to get to where he got to, because I think he would have finished, I want to say, fifth today, give or take.
Sainz finished fifth, Leclerc fourth.
Yeah, so it's solid points. It's a solid race. Ferrari seem to, touch wood, have their act together so far. And would they win a race this season? I don't know, but at least you have two drivers who are, a second driver that will at least now be competent, unlike the last driver last year, and will at least give them a fighting chance for P3, maybe even P2, depending on Bottas and whatnot in the constructors.
Yep, definitely. I think it's nice to see Ferrari doing well at the business end of the grid.
Yeah.
It's what I like to class as F1 heritage, especially
Yes.
when they're up there. You're going to add something else, JL? What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, so we're talking about second drivers, right? If you look at some of the teams this year, the second driver who has obviously been new, quite a few have struggled for various reasons. Perez, Ricardo, Alonso, Vettel. Sainz hasn't really, he's done okay, but he's probably been the best of the rest. But we might have to watch how the season unfolds. That there's a trend that a lot of these newer drivers, for some reason, it hasn't clicked, just haven't clicked yet. But that's just something to kind of asterisk for future races.
So using that analogy, are both Haas drivers just going to point at each other then?
Yeah,
so, you're the second driver. No, you're the second driver.
Listen, I don't count Haas. So
let's not count Haas this year. Yeah,
there are 18 teams, 18 drivers on that grid. As far as I'm concerned. So yeah,
fair enough. Look, guys, moving on. We've got an action-packed episode today. We've got loads to get through. And Nam, I'm going to come to you next. The pace that we've seen from the Aston Martin, it's been non-existent, in all honesty, since the start of the year. I mean, Kunle gave us his technology references of, a pre-production server or a QA server, and I'm going to apply that again to Aston Martin. Control C plus Control V is not working for them this year, is it? You can't just copy a team and hope it works out. What's going wrong there, mate? Tell me about it.
Well, I was completely, I was lost for words, to be fair, for their performances for the first two races, especially the last race. I didn't understand why there was such a fall in performance, considering that a lot of the regulations haven't changed that much, and I think there's an engine freeze as well, if I'm not mistaken. So nobody's really developed their engines going forward. So really, all it is it's body and aero that is bringing kind of like the performance improvements and lack of, in the case of Aston Martin. Until I heard something on Ted Kravis's notebook, was it? Yeah, well, it came from Ted Kravis over free practice. I think it's free practice 1 or something like that. In regards to Aston Martin pushing for tweaking the aero rules, and then I looked at the cars that were struggling and have been struggling. So Mercedes, Aston Martin, and I think they're the only two that have been struggling, and they all have something called low rake runners. So they're like the wings, well, not the wings, the back, I can't remember what it's called, but the diffuser at the back is lower than, let's say, the Red Bulls and the AlphaTauris and stuff like that. And there's been a stricter regulation on those cars than there has been on the higher rate cars. And I think that is playing into the hands of, like I said, the Red Bulls, and it's detrimentally affecting the Aston Martin a lot more than everyone else. I'm going to reluctantly drop my Aston Martin stakes and stocks. I'm dumping them right now. If these rule regulations are not changed, if they are, they have to come back into contention, because that would mean that they will be allowed to get the pace that they had last season back, and that would put them in the mix. I don't know what's going on with Vettel. I just think he can't drive that car at this present moment. And hopefully, if the rule changes come back or they're tweaked, he will grow into his car and therefore allow Aston Martin to be more competitive. But until then, I'm dumping them. I'm cutting my losses. From now on, I'm going to revert back to my status quo of Mercedes and following Lewis Hamilton, and constantly going to scrutinize Valtteri Bottas.
Fair enough. Nam, we respect that, and any opinion you express is the opinion of your own. Obviously, Kunle is not happy about what you said about Bottas, and we're also getting tweets here, or the account's getting atted at the moment. I don't know who's atting the account, but there's someone letting Pitstop Fracas Twitter know that someone was at fault for that collision that we saw today. But you know what, mate?
No, you can say it with your chest.
We respect it. Nam has been out in the Pitstop Twitter account telling us that, oh yeah, Bottas was at fault. But we'll do a deep dive into that during the week. We'll put a poll online on Twitter, etc., to look at that. To be fair, though, coming back to the Aston Martin stuff, let's be honest, man. Their marketing campaign was more exciting this year than their performances on track, man. Having Dave, having was it NFL stars NFL stars, and was it Tom Brady? Yeah, Tom Brady,
and James Bond,
and James Bond on was much more exciting than their performances on track, and they can only do better, to be honest with you. I think where did they end up? I think Vettel finished in 15th. Stroll
DNF.
finished in 8th.
Vettel DNF.
Oh no, Vettel was DNF. Yeah, he was DNF.
I think they had break issues throughout the race today too. So
yeah, it's not a good look at the moment, and they can literally only get better from here. But I just want to move on now to the man himself, Pitstop Fracas' favorite, Lewis Hamilton. I mean, this guy is absolutely incredible. He showcased his skills again today. Lap 31, after coming out from the pit stops. I'm always going to be here for Hamilton, and I'm always going to try backing him. The conditions were tough for him, He went off, he nipped the wall, his front wing was damaged. Only Hamilton would have the intuition to reverse back onto the grid, bring it back to the pits, get that front wing changed, and fly from 9th to 2nd in the way he did. Obviously, being the Lewis Hamilton fan that I am, I was enjoying that so much. And it was honestly a stormy drive from him, following that red flag. But I'm going to come to you on this quickly, Chris. How did you see that from Hamilton? Did you honestly see that front wing damage a bit uncharacteristic of him? Did you see that storming drive from 9th to 2nd as true Lewis Hamilton quality? What did you make of him today?
Well, the mistake was uncharacteristic, but as he said himself, humans make mistakes, it happens. But the drive back, is exactly what Lewis is. They've even talked about how Lewis is an uber optimistic person, and how normally Mercedes have to calm him down and give him low expectations. So they said, yeah, he can get second. He believed he could get second. They believed he could get second, and he went out and did it. He's the kind of person, there's expectations to be met, he'll go out and meet them. And that's exactly what he did. Clinical drive-through, made the moves at the right time, showed the experience, showed great racecraft, a really solid drive to come back from P9 to 2nd.
Yep, it was a great. I saw it was a great drive. He put in some fantastic overtakes, and to be honest with you, watching it, I was loving it. Obviously, I wanted Hamilton to win, but the moves he put on Danny Rick, Sainz, Leclerc, I thought were fantastic, and also to get Norris was amazing. And it just goes to show that this guy doesn't give up. You know, he will keep battling. He will keep fighting away. He won't let mistakes or, you know, bad luck or anything like that get to him. And it's just a testament to my GOAT that is Lewis Hamilton. But I want to get your take on this, Nam, before I come to Kunle on the last segment. How did you find Lewis's performance today?
I thought that was a performance of a understanding champion, that he needs to still be in it or in and around the championship, even though he hasn't got the strongest car on the grid at this present moment in time. I was surprised that he made that mistake, because Lewis Hamilton is particularly good in the wet. So I think he was stressing, he was panicking a little bit, which I don't think he needed to do, because he did win Bahrain. So if he stayed in and around and just applied that a little pressure, maybe could have pushed out a mistake from Verstappen. So I was surprised at that crash, but like you said, only him would have thought, let's reverse it out slowly and then get back into the race. He was fortunate that his crony Bottas was acting the fool and caused a red flag, which effectively got him back in the race, because if that didn't happen, I don't think he would had enough time to get back. I will say though, because I remember, I think one of you prior to the pod said that Verstappen had a good race. I will say though, we have to acknowledge the fact that there was a moment in time in the race where Hamilton was finding it very hard to get past Norris. Norris kept positioning his car very well because he wanted that second place. And I think that ate away at the laps for Hamilton to catch Verstappen. I think if he got past Norris quicker than he did, he would have, and as well, if he caught Sainz quicker than he did, I think those two factors played into Verstappen's hand. And if they weren't in play, we might be sitting here talking about an outstanding performance from Lewis Hamilton coming to take pole position and winning the race. But that being said, he had a good drive from 9th to 2nd, and that's gaining 8 places. That's phenomenal drive from any driver, considering that Imola is notoriously bad for overtaking.
Yep, definitely. And I suppose that just shapes up a fantastic championship battle. We were saying it at the start of the year that, you know, we want a fascinating encounter between the two top teams, and we're seeing that now between Red Bull and Mercedes. You know, Hamilton's now on 44 points, Verstappen's on 43. Without a doubt, there's a championship fight on now, and we just want to see more of that, to be honest with you. We want to see Hamilton and Verstappen battling out, obviously within reason and within fair racing, but we just want to see that excitement on track, and surely 2021 is going to provide us with that. Now, guys, moving on to our final segment of the pod, the Alex Albon Award. So this award that Pitstop Fracas notoriously issue out every race is to the driver that just feels they were being racing too hard. And unanimously, this has gone to Valtteri Bottas on Sunday, the 18th of April. And we're fortunate to be in the company of a man who appreciates Bottas a lot. Kunle, can you explain to us why Valtteri Bottas has received our Alex Albon Award this evening?
I mean, if I speak, I'm in trouble. But I'll speak.
No.
I'll
Speak
anyways. This is a travesty. This is shocking. This is disappointing. I feel like the voters, the people that voted have voted with an agenda in mind. You know, it's cool to not like Valtteri Bottas. That's fine.
But there was no one else. It was Bottas.
No. There's a man. There is no. Like I said at the start, there's a man in this race who who was overtaken on the safety car, who was spinning on his own. There's
So I suppose Kunle, just to interrupt you there, the four selections that there was Valtteri Bottas, Sergio Perez, Mick Schumacher, Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda got 3% of the votes. Mick Schumacher got 8.3. Perez got 33, and Bottas got 55. So it is probably just worthwhile making everyone aware that look, Bottas and Perez were both leading that. However, come the end of it, Bottas was the Alex Albon Award.
I feel like here at Pitstop Fracas, we need to drop the agendas on Bottas aside, and I feel like the agendas have been swaying the mind of the voters, and that could be why.
That's facts.
Especially for today. I mean, no. Jokes aside. Yes, Valtteri had a horrible race. He had a horrible Saturday, Sunday, but I mean, come on. This man barely did half of the race before he got wiped out. And I'm saying he got wiped out because he could have, there's images of someone else's car pointing at his halo.
No. But all of that, it's relevant. He's in the fastest car. He qualified.
Yes, he shouldn't be in that position. He shouldn't be in that position.
Was getting overtaken by Williams. That in itself.
Williams.
He was.
That in itself.
It wasn't.
That's enough. That's enough.
He did not get overtaken by Williams. He was
no.
It was close.
He was going to.
It was close to be. It was. I mean, ideally, he shouldn't be in that position to start with. But I would criticize him for that. Like, he didn't make moves that he should have made in the race early enough. I mean, he got lapped by the race leader, and possibly I think Lewis lapped him as well. Or Lewis was about to lap him before he went off the track. But that being said, I don't think this is a deserving award for Valtteri Bottas on this day. But it's okay. It's okay. We don't bend, we don't fold. We come back stronger next race weekend, and I'm sure it would prove to the world why he has the Mercedes seat. But I still feel like that was a bit unfair on him.
You know what I'm going to do, yeah? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pin my damning evidence of Valtteri Bottas to my Twitter, and then I'm going to retweet it out for the pit stop community to have a look at that damning evidence that almost caused the most horrific crash I've ever seen in my entire life.
No, you are the most shameless. You know, we might get rebranded as Shameless Fracas all of a sudden. You know the amount of shamelessness that's going on here. But yeah, guys, be sure to check out the tweet. It's just been retweeted from the account. That there is supposedly damning evidence to show there that Bottas was, being involved in dangerous driving there with George Russell. Kunle, I want to give you one final question before we wrap up the pod. What are you expecting now from Bottas in Portimao? What are you expecting from him in the next race?
It needs a strong showing. It needs to come out. It needs to be as close as possible to Lewis as it can get. He needs to. If Lewis is P1, he needs to be P2. Wherever Lewis finishes, it needs to be either directly behind him or in front of him. He cannot afford. He doesn't have that. I wouldn't say credit in the bank, because he has credit in the bank somewhat, but he doesn't have that. He doesn't have the liberties to take to say, you know what, I'm gonna have another bad weekend, and still survive because his name's on people's lips. His name's on the grid. Like I said earlier, I don't think the drivers on that grid rate him as much as they would rate any other person in a Mercedes. We've seen it in the past. I don't think he has that respect of the grid that he sort of deserves. So he needs to put a show in, and whatever happens to Lewis, it needs to be in there. It needs to be on or around him. It needs to be, it needs the team to be able to rely on him, like they have done somewhat in the past years. But now it's much more important. Mercedes need 2 drivers consistently scoring high points. If it's P1, it has to be P2. If it's P3, it has to be P4. I would say it needs, and I would expect, as a grown man, a man that has beard, I would expect him to come out.
Has beard.
I would expect him to come out next race weekend and and give us the typical the classic line from the Russian Grand Prix. And for my haters, that line. I'm expecting that
line.
from Vouch. Yeah, that line.
We know the line. Look, Kunle, thank you very much. You know what? For those final words on Bottas, I think in the next race, in my view, he has to step it up, because if the spotlight wasn't already on him after today, it surely is. He really needs to step up, because without a doubt, not only Hamilton's under competition now for a championship, Mercedes are under competition now for a constructors championship. So Bottas needs to do all that he can to not only support himself but support the team. So it'll be interesting to see, obviously, how that plays out in the next Grand Prix. But guys, that is all that we have time for today. We've gone through a vast array of stuff. Please get involved in the comments. Please like, subscribe this video if you're on YouTube. Give us a like, give us a review if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, and please continue the conversation on Twitter at Pitstop Fracas. We'll be here with you every step of the way. We've got a great pod coming up for you next week, where we're going to be touching on the upcoming announcement of the Miami Grand Prix, as well as other key stories involved in the Formula One world. So be sure to stay tuned and get involved with us there. Until then, guys, peace.
Take care, guys.
Bye, guys.
Peace.
See ya.
Peace.